Hi everyone, welcome to the November ESG update. I'm one of your hosts here, James, the CEO of ESG Reporting Intelligence. This is Lawrence Christoffels, the CEO of Ethical Trade Alliance. What we're going to talk about today is just a brief market update with a particular focus on Asia and Southeast Asia and the markets there. There's a lot of regulation happening globally and changing. It's really impacting that supply chain pressure in those markets, especially the markets that are really manufacturing focused. So I thought we'd talk through, Lawrence, kind of some of those changes that are happening.
Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks for having me on today. As you said, James, there's a whole groundswell of activity in the manufacturing and exporter space right across Asia and other regions as well, but especially Asia, because they are concerned about the new reporting requirements that are really taking hold in both the European market and the US market. Mainly around forced labour reporting and visibility, and how you can verify that products that are manufactured and shipped into those markets are free of forced labour. And the other part that's emerging quite quickly is the carbon border adjustment mechanism type of protocols that are going to be enforced as well into the EU.
It's a really interesting space. We, as a business, ESG Reporting Intelligence, we're a technology platform. It's really around self-reporting of ESG, and a lot of our clients we've been working with lately, they're businesses that are often in the developed market that are saying, I need to get some more granular data about our supply chain. And that supply chain is really challenging. It might be 2 or 3 tiers deep. It might be different suppliers of suppliers. Lawrence, do you have any kind of tips or ideas in terms of how you can pull that data out and get something that's more authentic?
Yeah, you make some really great points, James. One of the things that have really emerged for some of these nations who are developing nations who are very much the manufacturing sort of locations around the world is that most of the manufacturing and exporters, something like 80 to 90% of those are actually made up of SMEs. So SMEs don't have the infrastructure that the big boys do in the sense of ESG frameworks, reporting, policies, procedures, all those type of things. So there's a major gap between who has got that ESG framework and who hasn't. And what we've been seeing and speaking to a lot of the export promotion agencies and manufacturing industry bodies is that all these SMEs are really keen to work out with companies how they can implement simple, robust and verifiable systems. It's not going to be too overly onerous, but also not too expensive.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And in terms of, I think one of the biggest challenges are how do you get in-country audits done? How do you make sure that the manufacturing facility is, what it says it's doing? It does have all the policies in place. It is, respecting human rights or modern slavery risks, anything like that. Have you seen any good solutions around that space?
Sure. I mean, I think, with all disclaimer, Ethical Trade Alliance, yes, we can definitely work with remote audits, and we help a lot of those companies doing that very thing. But I think overarching, there's a lot of new policies, procedures and standards that have taken place, and companies now are really starting to getting a little bit confused about who should do what into what area, because they are used to quality management systems and ISO type of reporting, especially with bigger procurement processes. But when it comes to ESG, many companies may have basic sustainability awareness, but they really don't know those second, third and fourth tier levels like you alluded to before, James.
Yeah, and it is challenging to get that data. Often what we see, being a tech solution for ESG, we help guide the organisation around, here are all the questions you need to start reporting on, here's the kind of data you need to collect, but there's still that lack of uniformity around the approach. Some suppliers, I need this, some suppliers, I need this. One of the other bigger challenges that we've seen are your supply chain are made up of all these different industries and sectors, and there might be a marketing agency, might be a manufacturer. The challenges are asking the actual quantifiable questions to that sector. Sometimes, for instance, we ask suppliers that are a marketing agency around what are your policies and procedures about ethics and advertising, as an example. Now, how do you get that granular kind of approach across your whole supply chain? So it's some really big kind of challenging questions we've seen in that space. Technology should do a fair bit of it, but also there needs to be boots on the ground. And I think that's kind of the supply chain auditing piece that we've seen. You can't go past on-the-ground audits, checking out sites, interviewing people, and really getting to the bottom of what's happening in that facility.
Yeah, you make some really important points. So you mentioned uniformity and consistency, those type of things. So if I'm a procurement manager here in Australia or overseas in Europe or the US, and I've got 50 or 100 different suppliers, if they do self-reporting, even if I give them a basic template, the answers given are always all over the place. So there's no consistency in reporting. So by the benefit of having a trusted third-party verifier, that one, it's independent, it shouldn't have any undue influence. It's able to be basically scrutinised by an external party. The other really important point, James, that is taking hold, it's not just around ESG in procurement anymore, it's actually ESG in border control and cross-border trade. So border force agencies all around the world are increasingly becoming the gatekeepers in a quite literal sense of forced products suspected to be derived from forced labour, or even sustainability attributes and reporting per shipment, not even per company. So per shipment reporting is starting to take hold.
It is quite an interesting space. I think the other challenge with what we're talking about here is that data collection. We're also seeing a big shift in terms of embodied carbon, especially around materials that you might be using. The property sector, a good example of that. Certain markets are actually understanding and appreciating what was the carbon involved in that manufacturing, what's potentially the scope 3 emissions, and is that going to play a part in the assets, the end commercial high-rise buildings value, as an example. We're seeing different markets taking in a maturity approach to that and saying, well, if we don't have the embodied carbon details, is it going to be cost more to insure? Is there going to be more expensive finance rates? So right down to the door handle that's going on the bathroom door of the commercial building. There's a lot of data that needs to be collected and collated. And the challenge that we've seen is that emerging markets manufacturers of that door handle don't necessarily know how to get their footprint or don't know how to do it themselves. So there's a real education piece. We're seeing a lot of our clients building out these supply chain assessment processes, but actually starting the process and educating the supply chain, not just asking questions. Let's go and inform them why we want to do it and help them along the way.
But what you've just mentioned there, James, is the very reason why these suppliers are so confused and frustrated, because if there's 10, let's say, construction firms, and they all have their own unique assessment, then there becomes that lack of consistency, and these same suppliers don't know where to start in a sense of, okay, well, I'm doing this for ABC company, I'm doing this for DEF company, and all of a sudden they're doing all this extra onus reporting that in essence is the same, but they all have their own little templates to fill out. And I think that's where having an independent third-party verifier who has got a consistent reporting standard really is appreciated by both the exporters and the manufacturers, as well as the buyers and procurement officers, because you can work from the same page.
Well, there you have it. It's a very interesting space. A lot of challenges at the moment. I mean, November this year, 2023, it's kind of the tip of the iceberg has begun. We're seeing changing legislation right across the world. Europe's forced reporting already for 40,000 of the world's largest businesses. Mandatory reporting in pretty much every developed market now for large business. It's coming. It's already here.
It's here.
It's changing the world as we know it. And so that data piece, if you're a business out there and you're looking at this, you need to start looking at how you're going to collect that data. What processes do you want to follow? What kind of technology should you be using to help support those approaches? We're both active in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, India, as businesses, so we're always here to support you along the way. Reach out if you have any questions.
Wonderful. Yep, totally agree. Thank you, James.
Thank you.